this to go well. But let's see if that happens starting in 3, 2, 1, go. This will be another human playthrough here. So one human girl and the story of her father, which of course tragically ends with him going out the window. Or I guess begins, because there's so much more to this story after this little window visit. At the beginning of the game, your dad does give you one of the 78 magi. This is the magi that lets you locate other magi. And that might explain why during all these years that he was supposed to be finding magi, he has totally failed. Whereas you get all 78 in about an hour and a half. Sensei here wants us to pick a party, and we're going to go with second human, Baby D, and Robot here. Robot's really going to carry the party for the first hour or so. After that, the monster starts becoming pretty useful. The humans don't really have much role other than meat shields until later on in the game. We have a pretty long way to go before they start getting enough useful equipment to even survive anything or do damage. Alright, Sensei, we'll let you go with us this time. He is useful for beating the baby worm at the end of this section, especially if you don't have the human start, because you need to get some kind of damage dealing weapon. But the downside of Sensei in the party is that he weighs almost as much as Key, so we are getting these can't runs right from the start. I also failed to kill off any of my characters, so you weren't able to run the second time as well. You want to have your two human girls as close to death as possible at all times, so that if you do get ambushed or in a battle, they are killed off really quickly. Once they're dead, you actually have a much better chance of running, because instead of taking your character's agility whenever there's an empty slot, whether it's truly empty because you don't have a guest NPC, the character's dead or petrified or what have you, then it treats it as if you've got a 100 agility character for the purposes of escaping. Which is really nice, because a lot of games, it's actually harder to run away as characters die. There we go, 2 can't runs already, so a little bit slower than our previous playthrough. Let's see if we get Baby Worm meat again. Japanese version very differently mechanically. Oh, look at that. Maybe we're meat 2 playthroughs in a row. We are stuffing ourselves with meat here tonight. Normally I have both runs vegetarian. But back to the Japanese differences, except for the Sleipnir meat glitch, which is actually a bad thing, and so it slows you down in the English version. There's not a lot different between English and Japanese. Japanese has got faster text speed. Saves you a couple minutes over the course of the game. And like one of the things I want to do with this playthrough, or these playthroughs tonight, is to get timing comparisons. So I can kind of say, this is how many minutes ahead I expect to be on Japanese, if I want to compare between a Japanese runner's route and my route. Still hard because of how much RNG there is for things like battles and running. Do need to go down to the Relic of the Ancient Gods here. Fortunately, we don't have a party member right now, so we're able to actually run away from things. There's no boss at the end of this, so you don't need the help of any of the guest NPCs. Baby Worm, you could possibly get by on your own if you had enough buffs thrown to your robot. And the battle with Rhino is not too bad as well. It's nice having Key there because she does so much damage with her Thunder spell or her hammer. But you could really get by without it. And then by the time you get to Ashura, the robot's actually significantly more powerful than your guest NPCs are. There's our whip. That's 4 agility and 18 hit points for the robot once we equip it. and the rest of this dungeon is pretty straightforward. There's a couple of other treasure chests that I bypass. Most of the ones in here are actually empty, like the 3 that the laziest guards in the world are standing next to, because they take the magi out of those. There's nothing in them. And the ones I bypassed in the first dungeon are also pretty crummy. You get like a potion and other really small stuff, so that you can't really use it much in the game. The only time that I actually get a usable item is the high potion at Dunamis. And then everything else is looking at how much is this going to sell for. Because if it's even a couple steps out of the way, you're probably getting an extra encounter for going after an item. Here we go, the guards taking the magi and running, but not running very far. I guess those magi are pretty heavy, and so all we have to do is go up to the north room and go pick them up. So we got a power magi there in the upper left, a speed magi, and a mana magi. Each of those buffs the respective stats. Power is strength. For this party, doesn't ever have an importance to the game. You've got speed, which is going to be your robot's main strength, and you've got magic, and that's going to be the magi that we put on the monster, because once he turns into Watcher, the beam attack is actually magic based for the damage. Up to this point, what you could actually do is put power on the silver, because it does a little bit more damage to punch things. I mostly, though, don't bother, because that would be an extra menu trip in order to swap the magi out later. Let's go ahead and put that whip on. Magic, and you need speed. The reason for putting the things on here is because we're in a safe area where there are no encounters. Every time you go in and out of the menu, it counts as a step. So you can just go in and out of the menu and you would fight extra encounters without actually walking anywhere. The other reason we put things on right there is because now that we've got Key in the party, we actually need all the agility we can get. We do have plus 13 agility, I believe. 13 or 14 on the robot from the rapiers, the whip, and the magi. We have a decent amount of bonus agility on the monster as well, thanks to his evolution. If you stay at the base Baby D, then you'll probably get like 1 or 2 encounters in this section. With the upgraded monster, you can sometimes get through here without any ambushes or can't runs. There are no ambushes until you get to, I think, Apollo's World is the first time it's possible. And there is a slight difference there because I'm pretty sure you can't get ambushes until the last floor of the Cave of Light, whereas here in the Japanese version, I got one in the first floor. I think that's just swapping around where the monster formations are scheduled to appear. There's our first can't run. If you're doing world record attempts, basically if you get a can't run up through this point, it's just reset and start the game over. You want to have like the first 15 minutes or so really clean. Actually, it's not 15 minutes if you get world record strats, because sure it should be like a 13:30 somewhere around there with no can't runs. That zombie on the left is going to the left. Hopefully he stays in that row. You know, he's walking down. It's hard to predict what the walking path is going to be because they're just so fast for taking turns. Alright, he decided to cooperate. Those guys are both staying far enough up that I didn't have to worry about the zombie dance party. Look at that, 3 can't runs, plus I think 2 back at the original cave, so that was not a very good walk up to Rhino. Put you over to Thunder here. And Thunder is just more reliable. You can see that you're doing decent amount of damage with the robot's Colt, as well as with the bash attack that the monster has. If you just had Baby D, then you wouldn't do anything at all with him. And if you didn't have Colt or Rapier, which is the case in the Esper route, because you sell all your equipment off to buy bows for extra agility in the robot, then the robot can't help at all in that battle. But you always have Ki, or in this version Kai, to pretty much carry that fight. She doesn't quite one-shot Rhino, but it's really close. Here we are now in Ashura's World next. Ashura's World is the first time that you don't have really any hand-holding until you get pretty close to the boss, and you get Mask in your party. It's also the first kind of serious boss battle. The fight with Ashura, like if you don't have like the superpowered robot to do a lot of damage, Mask is actually your primary damage dealer in the fight. And so it's a lot easier for Ashura to get 2 flames off, or to do enough damage to just knock out your party one at a time. Because this 6-arm attack, I think, you'd have to do a lot of grinding in to survive with the humans, or actually buy armor, I guess. That's one of the reasons why they take so much damage in this game, is I leave the base bronze armor from the very beginning of the game on them. Esperanto, I even take the armor off to make it even easier to kill off the character. So I might think about doing here. I don't need to sell the bronze armor, but being easier to kill is actually good for the first couple of sections of the game. Go ahead, put that Saber on. Saber is 8 agility, and I want to say 36 hit points. I have to always go back and look at some of the tables, but you're basically getting increasingly larger stat buffs the later on the weapons are for upgrading this robot here. Let's go ahead and wheel it so that you can one-shot Woodman. And we get some pieces of wood to eat, which does not sound delicious, and we're going to pass those up. I don't have to actually eat the meat again until we get to Venus's Sewers, where we'll fight the Hermit Crab. That'll be my next monster to eat in this particular route. If I go vegetarian, then I can actually save some time in the sewers, so I don't have to worry about the meat drop happening. Just makes the first section a little bit slower as a result. Rolling our way up Ashura's Tower. Ashura's Tower or Ashura's Base. I always mix the two up for the naming. I think Base is what he has in your homeworld for his invasion force, and then the tower is this one. But everything in this game kind of looks like a tower from the inside because of the way that they have generally small floors with lots and lots of stairs. I guess this one is kind of more tower-like, so I'll call it Ashura's Tower here for this playthrough. And again, we're mostly hoping that he does not flame the party. So 6 arms on the human main character is perfectly fine. We don't need them to survive at all. We just need Dad, aka Mask, and Robot. Fortunately, Robot just bit the dust there. But sure, it was close enough we could finish him off. And with that, we get a next big chunk of Magi and a bit of plot dump. So you have, from Ashura, some of the information about his invasion plans. So he's kind of bragging to you about sending off invasion forces to other worlds. And so you find out that Key has been taken ill by Ashura's men shrinking themselves down to tiny size and going inside of her body. So obviously the solution is to do that same thing ourselves and go after him. For that though, we'll need to get the microrizing device from Giant's World, which is going to be our next destination. And you get a free teleport back to First World, then you have to walk all the way to Giant's World, which goes past Ashura's World in the middle. There's lots of sections in the game where it'd be really nice to get early teleports, just for the trips between the worlds. But the way it works is basically you only get a free teleport if there is an NPC that's about to leave your party. That way they don't have to worry about the swap over, because they can teleport you back to where they want to take the NPC out and also give your party a full heal, just in case the NPC was the last living party member for the fight. Here we go, a chance to meet Dad, which we haven't seen Dad for like 90 seconds. But he has thrown us off the trail by taking off his tiny little mask disguise. And so we're able to have this really awkward conversation where we do not realize we were just hanging out with Dad. And he, of course, just runs away, because that is what Dad does throughout this entire game. You do not spend a lot of time in his company. We need to do the rest of the questing for this world. The first half of the game, in general, is pretty quest and walking heavy, and then you get to the second half where it is like non-stop boss battles. You can see a really big difference just in like my splits, where I have lots and lots of time in between the early boss fights, and then we start getting like a boss fight every 2 minutes. All right, Johnny, we'll say you're a giant tonight. It's a slightly faster response than to say no. We are on to the secret passage. This is something that's clearly visible on the map there, but does not activate until after you've had that conversation with the guy behind the counter with Johnny. There's a few spots like that in the game. Normally they have just like a really generic message. Like if you go to the Venus's sewer area before talking to Land, it'll just say locked and give you no real explanation what you need to do to progress on. So this is a game which kind of enforces talking to all of the NPCs every time that something happens. Now, fortunately, there's never any cross-world stuff, so you don't have to worry about backtracking in the middle of a story element in order to go talk to other NPCs. It's generally pretty well self-contained. There's like one main hub city, one secondary city that doesn't have any important NPCs in it, and then a couple dungeons. Shield there, and Geta will sell those later on. The real thing we're here for is the microrizing device. The other stuff I need to pick up so that I can buy a submachine gun for my robot. Submachine gun does not help him become any faster, so we're going to pretty quickly throw it away. But there is one boss battle coming up, which actually has a group of enemies, and so you need to have AoE damage for that one fight. In the Esper route, you can have 3 characters potentially that can cast fire or flame, and so that's an alternate way of doing it. It's a little bit riskier because, except for the robot, all of your characters can be one-shot by the phagocytes at Key's body, and even the robot can only survive 1 regular hit of dissolve. He can survive all the status elements because he's immune to paralysis, but if they actually attack him, it's almost all of his hit points. I don't think they can one-shot him, at least not that I have seen. But generally, he is down to like 10 or 20 after the hit. And with that, we have finished Giant's World. We'll go on and do our little shopping trip here. sell, and sell. And we want to get submachine gun there. So 1444 is the correct amount of gold to end up with. And I sold everything except for the microrizing device there. You do not want to sell quest items before you have finished the quest. It does let you do it. But then after the quest is done, you can just sell quest items for 1 gold to get them out of your inventory. I'm trying to think if there's even any spots in the game where a quest item automatically disappears, and I can't even think of any examples of that. Like, you have to sell the microrizing device, you have to sell the key that you get in Venus' sewers. Most of the other ones are magi, so there's a separate menu for those, but like everything that goes into your main inventory, it's up to you to figure out when to throw it away. Here in Key's body, we get some nice relaxing music and some not at all relaxing visual effects. This looks a lot better in the original Japanese version, not the original Japanese version, the original Game Boy version, where it's black and white graphics, so that the color combinations actually make sense. What's happening in the background is that it's supposed to be shades of gray that are pulsing lighter and darker, but with the false coloring the Game Boy player palette puts on there, it's instead kind of strobing through green and blue, which is why it's so like visually distracting. Picking up the second magi here. We need to collect 6 overall before we can get into the fight with the boss. Each of the magi is held off in its own little mini dungeon, which this big dungeon is kind of a stick figure outline of Key's body, and the mini dungeons are then like the hands and the feet and the heart and so on, but they're totally out of proportion. So like Key's feet are like the entire same size of her whole body. It's a really kind of strange thing if you actually lined them all up on like a big map. I can kind of tell why it makes sense, because if you did it at like actual scale size, then the little side dungeons would be incredibly tiny. That wouldn't be terrible, just because there's probably a little bit too much walking in this section, at least for the speedrun. If you're doing casual play and having to fight through these monsters, though, then it's actually a pretty difficult struggle to go and do this dungeon a single shot. You've got a limited number of charges for all of your weapons and armor and spells, so if you like swing a sword 30 times, then it breaks and you can't use it anymore, so you have to go and buy a new one. And that's why, like for casual play, it is something where you can't rely on just using your strongest moves being spammed over and over, or even like being able to do long stretches of these encounters. For the speedrun where we have enough agility on this robot to run away from everything, it's a really different type of experience for it. The one slight downside, though, is that your humans and espers are incredibly underpowered. The monster turns out pretty well, because that's all about eating the correct monster meat for evolution. And the faster you speed through the game, the faster you get to better monsters to consume. Robots gain power by equipping items on them, and it doesn't matter what item you can put them on. You can stick as many helmets or shields or what have you on your robot, and it all works out. So I go for all of the agility gear that I can get, and that gives me a really fast robot, as well as one that can do a lot of damage with agility-based weapons. Hey, as it works, welcome in. Just playing through some Japanese Final Fantasy Legend 2. This is where the SaGa names come from. So SaGa was the original name of the series. So SaGa 1, 2, and 3 on the Game Boy. SaGa 1 got a remake for the Wonder Swan color. SaGa 2 and 3 got remakes for the DS much later on. And then later games in the series, like Romancing Saga and Saga Frontier, they actually use SaGa as the brand name for the US as well. So people are more familiar with those, which is kind of unfortunate because I think except for like Saga Frontier 1, a lot of the later games have really mixed reviews. Like, it kind of felt like there was much more solidarity around enjoying games like Saga 3 than it was in the more modern ones. Hey, Blummager, welcome in. Glad you enjoyed the GDQ run. I had a lot of fun doing that run. It was interesting doing a co-op RPG, especially at a GDQ type event, because it's something where you can actually trade off commentary and have breaks during the run, which for a 4-hour marathon run is actually pretty intensive. When I did it for Limit Break, it was just me talking the whole time and playing the game, which is a lot of fatigue by the time you get to the end of it. But for GDQ, like, I was still really fresh even after 4 hours of almost continuous dialogue during it. There we go, 6 Magi down. So now we have access to Kai's head, which is where the 7th Magi as well as the boss is. I want to say I put the submachine gun on, but I'm going to check just to make sure I don't go into that battle without it. Submachine gun is the item that we bought back at the town coming from Giant's World. And without that, you're going to have a really hard time on this boss fight. Have you ever considered running Saga 2 DS? They made so many changes to the bosses in the DS version. Like, Arsenal is a really, really crazy and long fight that I'm not sure there is a viable speedrun route that people would enjoy watching. I would have to figure out like a totally new route to be able to be prepared for it. And I'm kind of concerned at just like the overall length of how that looks. There we go, faster sights down. Go ahead and do this text skip here, which I think the timing works exactly the same between English and Japanese. I'm not doing anything special for changing when I am pressing down to get that to happen. Got a fairly generous frame window, so maybe that's also a factor. We are done with First World through Giant's World, never to return. We're gonna go next to Apollo's World and meet our main antagonist for the game. Although he pretends otherwise to begin with. There we go, on to Apollo's World here. Almost went through the wrong door because I was not saying the worlds out loud. You have to do a couple of stretches where you are kind of forward tracking because you get warped back to a previous area of the game. And you need to make sure that you go to the right number of worlds for it. I can generally recognize where I am based on the beanstalk maps, but a lot of them do look really similar for the beginning. There we go, Apollo's riddle telling me where all the Magi are. Fortunately, there's a slightly easier way of picking it up, which is that you need to go to every single dungeon of the game. There is no optional ones, so it's actually really hard to get it wrong for what the order is. And I guess the big thing is just knowing do the undersea volcano first, then the Cave of Light, and finally the mountain cave. But Apollo's riddle doesn't really help you for that. It just tells you that there are 3 dungeons. The reason you want to do this one first is so you can get the True Eye Magi, which allows you to see in the Cave of Light. Yes, this is a volcano, so all this blue swimmy stuff is actually lava. That's why we're taking damage going through it. Sadly, unlike Final Fantasy 1, it does not disable the encounters, which is pretty high for this game. I would say like one of my biggest frustrations for speedrunning SaGa 2 just in general is the encounter rate and how tough it can be sometimes to get through areas cleanly. Because a lot of this is just there's a few areas of the game where you have a chance of ambush, or at the very end everything's unrunnable, and so if you get bad luck for where the encounters happen, that can throw you off quite a bit time-wise. Fire book there is another item that we're just going to sell later on. You want to have a good amount of items picked up for cash, because since we are skipping all of the random encounters, we are going to be extremely impoverished for this run. The bosses give a decent amount of money, but definitely not enough to make up for the fact that you are missing out on every other battle. Go underwater volcano complete. Onto our Cave of Light next. This is my favorite background of the game, the animated checkerboard disco floor of doom. Which, if you're not used to this is really disorienting walking around while the floor is moving. But the floor moving is actually just a visual effect. It is not pushing your character around at all. There are other parts of the game where your character does actually get pushed by the floor. But this is not one of those. So as long as you don't focus too much on the background and just imagine that you're walking in a straight line on a solid checkerboard floor, you're generally going to be okay. I think last time we had, what, 1 or 2 ambushes here, so I can pick up a little bit of time compared to the splits if we get no ambushes on this walk up. I can sell, the most recent one being that Thunder book. There's a few magic books that you get throughout the game, but I don't have any characters that have enough mana stat to actually use them effectively, except for Dad, at which point you're just going to give him the Flare book. Even when I'm running the Esper route, and you have a character that, in theory, should be good at magic, and I give her a magic potion, because we don't do any leveling throughout the game, she ends up with basically no damage at all for her magic spells as well. That's why even if the Esper learns like Flare or something in the last dungeon, you just use the laser guns. Laser gun is an item that ignores enemy defense and doesn't have anything based on your stats for the formula. It's like just like a constant 350 damage plus a random factor. Grab the Magi. Don't forget the 3 Magi here. This is one of the few times in the game where the Magi are actually scattered around the floor instead of being all grouped together in a cluster. So I've gone through here and sometimes forgotten to get one of the Magi, which is really hard to figure out where you missed it. For this one at least, I can kind of guess that if I miss a Magi somewhere at Apollo's World, it's probably Cave of Light, because nowhere else would I actually not grab all the treasure chests. But tonight we are good, and we're going to go on to our final area here, which is the Mountain Cave. Okay, but a little bit of a troll that it actually has 2 entrances, and it doesn't give you any indications. If you go inside, you get to the spot that's impassable, and you have to figure out that there's actually a second secret entrance around the back, which you cannot see from either the spot where you come into the world or the town that is nearby where you can buy supplies. I only had 4 Phagocytes in that first battle, so I definitely need to grab the rocket here. If you have 7 or 8 Phagocytes in the battle instead of Key's body, you can actually skip this item pickup. It is, I want to say, 6 steps out of your way plus the door transition. So it might be one battle to run from, and this fade in, fade out effect to grab it like every single time. I've just started to get into a habit, because I almost never get 7 or 8 Phagocytes. It's supposed to be equal odds, 4 through 8, but it seems like I always get like 4 or 5. I don't know if that is actually something about the way that I play the game, or if it's just like bad luck repeatedly over and over again. But it's basically resulted in me planning that rocket every single time. Like, I don't even bother tracking how much money I need to see if I get the breakpoint or not. There we go, down the water slide of doom. Because we got a really high encounter rate section right before then, I didn't have to worry about it on the water slide. But here, when we have Lynn in the party, hopefully no encounters. Of course, one step in, we get an encounter. And of course, Lynn weighing us down, because like Kai and Mask, she is made out of plutonium. I didn't put the lightsaber on. Let's see if this is faster. So, monster dead. I think I'll have to do like 3 rounds. Nope, only 2. That's not too bad. Definitely better than resetting there. I'll go ahead, put the lightsaber on when I get back to town, as well as do my shopping. And my 3 headbutts here for my robot. Let's see, we want to replace Colt. I'll replace, so replace the whip there, and the submachine gun. There we go. The reason for those particular ones is that Colt and submachine gun don't help my robot's agility, so I'm missing out on some hit points by doing that, but it's increasing his damage output. And then whip is the lowest tier agility-based weapon I have. It's tied with the rapier. They're both 4 agility plus 9 HP, or 4 agility plus 18 hit points. There we go. And with that, we are on to our next destination, which is your dad's secret base. And he's a little bit protective of this thing. He's probably put more time into his secret base than he put into his daughter, so it's kind of not surprising. So he will definitely be upset if we blow it up, which we're about to. So I'm playing the hero's theme there, or Eustace theme, and it lets us get into the base itself. And you do get thrown into jail immediately after being accused of being spies, but your dad, nice enough to let you out, does give you a really strong, stern glance there. He is kind of disappointed that you went after him. However, that's not going to deter us. We're going to continue running after Dad to see if we can finally have some wonderful father-daughter time together. But no, he just sends you right to bed. And now this is totally not my fault. His base has now been completely overrun by monsters and destroyed, so see you later, Dad's base. And now we're going to use the lightsaber. You can see how much more damage that it does than the regular saber that we had before. And that's for 2 reasons. One is that we have put more agility gear on, so we have like I don't know the exact number, but probably 20 more agility than we had before, right around that amount. And we increased our multiplier. So the saber was 9x your base agility for its attack power, and the lightsaber is 11x. It's actually pretty good because the final agility weapon that you get in the game, the Cat Claw, which we'll get at Edo, is only 13x. So we're like almost got the most powerful single target weapon we can get for our robot. I mean, I guess it's good and bad. It's good that you get it so early so you can deal with a lot of the bosses, but it's bad because when you get to the final area of the game, the robot's kind of underpowered. Which I know is shocking given how much he's able to carry the party at the early game. Alright, Commando, time to take you down. This is the leader of the invasion force. And on the side, while he was not bringing these guys in to wreck your dad's base, he also kidnapped Lin, who we were just hanging out with. And of course, the party is now very concerned. All of the guest NPCs are extremely inept at almost everything. At least until you get to the later ones. I think that the last two you get are pretty good. But up until then, they are pretty bad at combat as well as at stats. So we need to rescue Lin here at Ninja Ambush World. Area where you would probably never want to go on vacation. I mean, unless you like ninjas and ambushes. Your dad does. So much so that his solution for solving this ninja ambush problem is to blow himself up. And you'll see that this is actually Dad's favorite technique. It does not work on Ninja, so we're actually left to mop up the remains of Dad and this fight. But Dad is not going to be satisfied with that one explosion. He is going to do that again later on. Conversation there with Lin's mom. That's a faster one than talking with Lin. You're basically just doing that conversation in order to get the Magi from them. You need the Magi to progress onto the world, otherwise the doorway into Venus's world will be locked. And there we go, Apollo's world done again. So we got backtracked a couple worlds, and so we have to go past your dad's secret base. Past Ninja Ambush World, and at least you don't have to go through the worlds themselves to cut through. They have these little shortcut areas to make it a faster trip. And then finally on to our new destination, which is going to be Venus's world. And of all the worlds, and of all the gods that are kind of being tyrants of their own little domains, Venus is probably the one that I feel the worst about murdering, because it seems like she actually has built a working civilization here. Everyone else, it's like, they might have their own little palace, but it's like a couple of farmers and mud huts around them. Whereas Venus actually has like a decent entire like infrastructure and city that she's built up, which is probably all going to be destroyed as soon as we finish murdering her. Now we'll be back to talk to Flora there a little bit later on. Flora and Nils are one part of a romance plot. The other part is going to be Leon here outside. And Leon is actually the first quest trigger that we need to activate here in Venus's world. He unlocks the sewers dungeon. Oh, look at that. Wonderful ambush one step outside. So this formation, Werewolf, Stoneman, and Fly can ambush you here on the overworld. And there's another formation inside the dungeons. Beach Ball Serpent, Creepy Doll, and Mushroom that can also ambush you. If you're hoping for no ambushes, on average, it's probably 2 or 3 in a typical playthrough. Alright, Leon, that time we could catch him. He claims to have a bad leg, but if you saw how much he got away from me the last time we went through there, it was like a good 2 or 3 loops going around each other trying to talk to Leon. He moves really fast like all the NPCs in this game. Give me something else besides these guys. Well, at least it's not ambushes every time. Please. This is so scary walking through there and just like the one ambush formation over and over again. But here we are in Venus's sewers. There is 6 magi to collect, as well as I need to get this hermit crab meat to drop. Let's see how many tries it takes. I think it was the second try on the previous run. Both tries I got the baby worm meat, so we had to do this hermit meat to fix up my monster type. This is optional. There's a vegetarian route, which doesn't get any meat at all up until Race World. I'm going to use an Aegis shield there, or shell. No hermit meat. So let's try number 2. There he goes. That wasn't too bad. It's a 1 in 4 chance of meat drops, more or less. 25% chance of drops plus 1% per copy of the monster that's there. So technically, Hermit's 26%. But it's so close to 1/4 no matter how many monsters you're fighting. I just always call it 1 in 4. Hey, CSGO, why are we doing the Japanese version? So I can compare my route times to the Japanese community times. There are text speed differences in this game. And so if you just go straight up for comparisons, it looks like the Japanese times are like a couple minutes faster, but a lot of that is text differences. And this is going to help me figure out exactly how much. Like the previous playthrough, I easily had a sub 1 minute or sub 1 hour watcher, despite like 4th try watcher and a whole bunch of can't runs. So I know that was at least a minute or 2 faster than what I would see in the English route. There we go, collecting all the magi from the sewers here. That's part 1. And then part 2 around the corner. The treasures that I don't open in each of these rooms is actually a monster in a box. And there is no benefit to fighting monsters in a box in this game. There's no XP, and there are no items after you beat the monsters, so it's really like a small chance that you're going to get stats or a skill from it if you got an Esper, and otherwise a waste of your time. Flora. And for some reason, Flora announcing her engagement with Nils causes a volcano to erupt out of the ground, a rather strange occurrence. Strange enough that we need to go investigate. This is probably where our quest is going to have more magi at. I still think it's funny that they have an engagement announcement cause like a dungeon to explode. Hey, Leon. He's been chasing us around the entire dungeon, which is not very fun. Leon is so loud and obnoxious that you are forced to turn around and stare at him until he goes away, which is going to happen every single one of these floors. At least for this game, there are actually no kanji in it. It's all hiragana and katakana. Up until like the Super Nintendo area, that's probably the first one we started seeing kanji pretty regularly. Like you can see kanji in title screens, but the low resolution of these older systems is not enough to get reasonable sized characters. Even Super Nintendo often avoided kanji just because it's rather hard to see the detailed strokes in them at like a 256 by 240 resolution. And Game Boy is, what, 160 by 144, so it's even more constrained for screen real estate. Hey, Leon. One day we'll be able to outspeed Leon and we'll be able to get through this dungeon without his interference, but so far, Leon's always been faster than us. Even if you've got teleport at the end of this, and you're chasing after him, you still cannot win in a race between you and Leon getting back to town. There's Beach Ball Serpent. So this is the other formation besides werewolves that can ambush us. So unfortunately we ran into one of those. Fortunately though, they attack the human up front. That's one of their big jobs, just be meat shields, distract the enemies from killing off your robot. Because you want to have ideally as much HP as you can so that you don't have to do more than one high potion on him. Also be rather unfortunate to actually die to one of these random encounters. You would be able to get the Odin Resurrection, but that's probably a good 45 seconds that you're losing from watching that cutscene. Walking on that dock there saves 1 hit point. It's the same number of steps going through the lava versus walking on the docks. And the 1 hit point I don't think will ever make a difference given where the breakpoints are for how many heals that you need. But it's always good just to have like clean walking style whenever there is like safe squares or ways to avoid damage. There we go, Leon taking the Magi from us. We're gonna go after him the only way we know how, by crashing weddings. Like seriously, it's a good thing we know that Venus has got a wedding chapel, otherwise it would be rather hard to find out where to go next coming up after this. I don't think Leon tells you anything about what he's going to do other than he's going to fight Venus with the Magi. So here we go. Venus's wedding reception for Flora and Nils is beginning. And of course we get invited because, you know, why not? You know, invite as many people as you can to your wedding. Alright, so high potion robot, high potion the monster as well, just in case that lets him survive an attack. I don't think he can survive flame. But you really just need him to be a distraction so that robot can go to work on Venus here. 3 good hits, generally enough. And if you get lucky, the humans are going to survive the fight so that they can actually get a chance to level up. Okay, monster jumping in the way of that attack. Human jumping in the way of that attack, and now robot can kill the boss. And with that, we have a pretty good Venus's roll. I think I got 2 fewer ambushes than we did last time. This is where all the time savings came from. Is having more players alive not spread the experience around? There's no actual experience in this game. Humans and espers will have a percentage chance of learning, or a percentage chance of gaining stats on every battle, but there's no XP or levels. Espers have a percentage chance of learning skills. Monsters only get stronger by eating other monsters, and robots only get stronger by equipping items. So actual XP and the number of people alive doesn't matter. It's actually helpful to have, ideally, all of your characters alive for all the battles. In practice, though, the humans are so flimsy that they just die in most of the fights. That we are on to Race World. This is going to be the big RNG part of the run. We get to see how many tries on Watcher luck we need to get. I think it was 4th try last time, which is not bad. Also, 2nd try to Lamia. Do they have to be humans? For this route, I pick humans because they can give their rapiers to the robot at the beginning of the game that increases his agility and HP. And at the late game, they can fire laser guns on Apollo and on the final boss. There's an Esper route run that I also do, which replaces the 2 humans with an Esper plus a Baby D. The Esper can have really rare chances of getting good skills. It's a 1 in 128 chance of learning the skills that I want in the early game, which can save a lot of time. I have gotten that to happen twice, but you definitely can't have any kind of a consistent route based on it. It's just pure luck about which skills you get. And other than that, Espers are like a weaker version of humans. Monsters, while there are some good monster evolutions, there's a limited number of high-tier monster meats. And so I can really only support 2 monsters ever with the meat route that I have throughout the game. So having more than 2 doesn't really help. And then robots are all about equipping items. So there's certain items that are going to be unique, and so you can't get more, and there's others that just cost a lot of money. So it'd be hard to equip more than 1 robot. That's basically why there is a human route and then an Esper route, and not really many other variations. Although I know in the Japanese community there's probably like another 2 or so commonly used parties. Alright, Watcher luck, attempt number 1. Let's see, do we get Watcher meat? We also need to only have a small number of 2 Watchers, that's okay. Of course we miss, this is like fighting 3 Watchers. Okay, 2nd character blinded, that's not too bad. The humans don't need to be able to see anything. It's a little bit more painful if the monster gets blinded, because you do want to get a move later on that uses accuracy. But we didn't get Watcher meat anyway, and we got 4 Watchers, so let's do attempt number 3 here. Okay, 2 Watchers is another possible attempt. Okay, so he beamed a human, which is not bad. As long as he doesn't kill the monster or the robot, we're okay. Or could drop some meat, that would be nice too. Attempt number 4 here, attempt number 5. If I don't get it this time, I'll probably start losing time compared to the previous run. Come on, Watcher meat. We got Watcher meat. And so I picked up 16 seconds, it looks like. Not very much, but at least we got something. And there we go. We win the race by default because everybody else died. Which is really how sporting competitions work. Now, Watcher has several nice benefits. He's got some good moves, a lot of HP and good stats, and he's got the warning ability, so we are now immune to ambushes. If you had the Esper route, you could conceivably get warning relatively early in the game, but most of the time I fail, and so we have to deal with ambushes up through race world anyway. And here we go, time for Edo World, and what's more, the seedy underbelly of drugs and opium. In this version of the game, you actually do have the true story, which evidently not bananas that they're smuggling, it is drugs. And you're gonna beam, you're gonna lightsaber here, and I will go and get the cat claw, which is the route I've been doing for most of the English playthroughs as well. Getting the cat claw here rather than the laser gun route is probably like 15 seconds slower, but it makes the bosses a lot more reliable. So I have to have as many retries, especially on Odin. Alright, and high potions can go. Sume, there we go. And I'll put the cat claw in a little bit later once I get more of the items as well. There's no real tough boss fights for a little while, so I can wait to collect all these stuff and then do one big menu. That's also when I'm going to put the Aegis shield on, which I got back at the Venus fight. Here we go. Hana, head of the drug agency, is telling us a backstory about her dad getting killed off by a drug smuggler. Like I said, it's a little bit darker here in this, as opposed to being killed off by a banana smuggler, which, of course, makes no sense at all. I guess I don't know, maybe banana trades is a really violent business. What you do there is go rough up Echigoi's clerk. Echigoi is the guy that you suspect of being the main smuggler here in this world, and his clerk tells you about this drug running boat that is sailed into town here in the south, and that's where we need to find proof that he is actually the person smuggling the opium into the city, which of course we're not going to bother doing at all. Instead we just pick up all the nice items and let Hana and Taro here, or Ronin, find all the evidence. Go around the corner and pick up our laser gun, or beam rifle as it's called in this version. So the laser guns are one of the best weapons you can get overall, mostly because they do not use your stats in any way. So the humans that have terrible stats can do just as much damage as anybody else with them. And they also ignore enemy defense. Those two things put together mean that you actually can viably attack the bosses with the humans after this point. You also get the tank, which is another really good item. The tank doesn't do as much damage as the laser guns, and there's a couple moves that can block the tank that the laser guns will pierce through, like the Aegis shield when Apollo uses it. Tank is resistant, whereas laser guns are not. However, tank has about a 70% chance of blocking any single target physical attacks headed at that person. So I put the tank on the first character, which is the one that's most likely to be targeted, and then she can actually block a lot of attacks at the magistrate battle, as well as the magnate battle, as well as surprisingly, Arsenal's Small Smasher is implemented as a physical attack, so she can block that as well. Unfortunately, Big Smasher, nothing really helping with that. Oops. I need to go down to the Magistrate first. Almost going up to Edo again. That's what we do after getting through this section. some heinous drug activity going on. And so Echigoya needs to be thrown into jail. What's this? Evidently he's carefully concealed all of the evidence, so now we have no proof that he's the actual evil man in town. And of course in a lot of trouble with the magistrate after falsely accusing Echigoya of these crimes. And then we get some hard-boiled detective drama where you're kind of warned that you guys are in too deep into this case, and big men are actually behind the crimes, which we need to go find proof of for ourselves. So we're going to take Hana to the party and go actually fight against Echigoya here. And once I get into town, I should go ahead and do all of my equipment swaps. We're going to go ahead and get the tank. Robot is going to get Cat Claw put on there. We're going to put that rapier up to there. And beam rifle is the other one to fix up. I put that in the wrong spot. We'll beam rifle there and then move the saber up. Just one more thing. Put Aegis Shield on. It's kind of important. Now the reason I want to have my items in certain slots is in the late game you're actually moving back and forth between the Cat Claw, Samurai Bow, and at some locations the beam rifle. So you want to have the Cat Claw and Samurai Bow next to each other. The beam rifle just needs to be nearby so that it doesn't take too many moves. It's only used in one battle to fight against Apollo. And here we go. We get information. Evidently the Shogun's the evil man behind the evil man smuggling this opium. So turns out Echigoya was just a low-level flunky. Unfortunately, they hear our theme music playing and Shogun runs away. And it leaves us to fight Echigoya. Okay, you're going to be in the Hanamotos. You're going to Cat Claw. Echigoya. There we go. And Jite is actually the name of a classical, like, weapon that a detective would be equipped with at this point in the game, or the world historically. And they renamed it to Saifa in the US version, which is I'm not quite sure why they picked that rather than trying to like translate it literally, or to just use the phrase Jite. But there's all kinds of strange names for the moves that make a lot more sense if you read the Japanese version. With that, we have taken Taro into the party. He's going to help us out because evidently he's a friend of your dad's, and he's so broken up over your dad's untimely pathing at the hands of ninjas that he wants to get vengeance here. And we don't tell him that your dad blew himself up. He just thinks that ninjas took him down. Okay, so you're going to beam, you're going to Cat Claw, and Muramasa. And because we only got one ninja and one knight here, we should be able to one-round this battle. It's just a question of, do any of the enemies block? There's one slight complication, which is they reuse that Gate Guardian group, the Ninja Knight and Stonemen, for regular encounters later in the dungeon. And since it's used as a quest battle, they marked it as an unrunnable encounter. And that means if I see it again up at the top floor, I actually have to remember to attack rather than run. If you run away from the battle, then the enemies will have a free round to just pound your party. Hey, Mecha Jeff, welcome in. A good RPG dino to you as well. And dungeon is fairly straightforward in terms of its layout. It's just that there's lots of little side passageways. So if you don't know which of the areas the stairs are in, there's actually a bit of exploration that has to be done here. But it's not that much longer walking distance-wise than a lot of the dungeons that came before it. And there are treasure chests in most of the side areas. There's 4 overall in this area. I skip all of them because you're about to get better gear in terms of sale price once you get to Valhalla, and then especially to the final dungeon, which is not actually the final dungeon of the game. It's just very misnamed. Okay, that was not the group. I saw the knights and then it was commandos instead of ninjas or stone men. I think the stone men always appear in that formation. It's the knights and ninjas that randomly might not show up. Go ahead and grab the one item that's not too far out of the way, which is the dragon shield. We'll sell that for a bit of cash later on. Oops. That's not the samurai bow room. This is the one. I'll go ahead and stick that right next to the cat claw there. And now it is time to take down Shogun for all of his terrible deeds. Which really weren't that bad, because it turns out there is one more evil man behind the evil man smuggling opium. This is going to be Magnate, and he is the real evil guy in charge. He is actually the Shogun's dad. And he, of course, just blasts him out of the way. That's how little he cares. Now, Shogun does have some pretty nasty attacks, so hopefully he doesn't tornado, and hopefully he doesn't use elemental attacks until after we have the Aegis shield up. Turns out, no, he's got a tornado right there, so we are now in pretty bad shape. We need to keep Robot alive here. He's doing most of the damage. Alright, Robot missed. Look at that, what a jerk. If Robot hadn't missed there, that would have ended the fight. Instead, we're going to be losing some time, it looks like. It's actually pretty rare to die on Magnate, especially with this party with the cat claw. It's probably like a 90% chance of winning. Like, except for Odin and Arsenal, like all of the boss fights are like 90% plus. Okay, now we got Aegis up. We're able to block the attack, so this should go much smoother. But again, we missed out on a good opportunity to get some time back. There he goes. And we were one hit away from last time, so I'm especially mad that Robot missed on that last turn. Hey, no good. The tornado certainly didn't help. But we would have survived that. Like, he carefully attacked everyone except for the robot. So after the tornado, he killed the monster first, and then he killed Taro after that. The robot had a chance. He just failed me. What didn't fail me, though, is Nasty Dungeon. That's a really hard dungeon, but you only need that one treasure chest, which makes it the shortest world overall in the game, which is the exact opposite of casual play. This is probably a spot where you could spend a good, 4 or 6 hours in a normal playthrough trying to finish. And there is a lot of good gear there, so we are definitely missing out on equipment. Yeah, the gold split with the death on the boss. That's kind of a sign that I've not done very many runs on the Japanese version. I keep separate splits for Japanese versus English because there is the text speed difference. Also, Japanese has got slightly different timing rules. And there is still a pretty big chunk of time we can get back. The run that I'm comparing against, the 147 here, died on Arsenal. So that's like a good minute and a half. Hey, Celia, welcome in. Yep, this is the human route for these playthroughs. Like, in theory, I could do the Esper route, although it would be really taxing because you have to read all of the special ability pop-ups that the Esper gets. But Esper route is not as consistent as human route for time is, so I want to have a good comparison for how much the tech speed differences there are between the versions. That's most of the reason why I am doing the runs here. Go ahead, go pass up the item and also pass up the stairs. Just zoning out for a little bit, walked right by it. The first entrance there is where the item on that floor is kept, and of the 4, I just grabbed the one that's closest to my walking path. I probably could get away with no item pickups here, but it's very, very close in terms of time, and at least for the US version, if you get the Sleipnir meat drop, you want to have the item here to make up the gold difference. Japanese version, you don't have to worry about Sleipnir meat breaking the run, because you can actually get the meat and all of the money from the boss. I want to say I think I died on Odin as well, so if we get all the boss fights first try, we could still pick up a decent amount of time. Minion was like second try. Not second try, like retrying the battle, but like second try for the attacks. And then Warmech, we actually had the melee as well. Both of them were really ornery. Here we go, Odin time. Get the Uchibo. The Japanese community is a decent size. I think there's like 24 runners. US community is a lot smaller. There's probably like a half dozen active runners for it. Alright, so let's look at our damage potential. We have both monster and robot alive here. Hopefully Odin doesn't kill him off. We did get the Aegis up, and so we have good resistances here. And so we just need to get one more wasted turn and we should be good. Nope, even got him right there. Nice job, everybody. Go ahead, use the Pegasus Magi. And this is going to warp me to Valhalla, which is the area that we're actually in. The trick, though, is that after the boss is dead, it changes the warp point for the location. So you can actually skip walking out of the palace by teleporting there. And unfortunately, that's the only time that teleport is useful in the human route. If you get teleport skill early enough in the Esper route, you can save a lot of time. But you just don't get it until so late in the speedrun. And it's about to be taken away as well. Yeah, finally we got a good boss fight. Hopefully we get a good arsenal as well. That's the one I'm really most concerned about. Here we go, Apollo time, and Apollo, rather than fighting us directly, sicks his minion on us instead. Minion's got one fatal flaw, which is they forgot to give both Minion as well as the next boss, Warmech, resistance to petrification. So that turns into a really quick fight. That time we actually got the first try Stonegate, so I didn't have to melee him to death. Unfortunately, though, Apollo's backup plan of kidnapping everybody in the entire universe is a pretty effective one, and we are forced to turn the Magi over. Unfortunately for Apollo, though, there is one more hidden Magi that only Dad knows about. And evidently Dad's still alive. Like, he blew himself up against that ninja, and we thought he was pretty dead as a result. But evidently he was just faking it. And so we journeyed together into what they call Final Dungeon. Not actually Final Dungeon of the game. There is one more after this, as well as one more world, so also incorrectly named Final World. Final Town, though, that is correctly named. There is no more towns after this, and so we'll do our last bit of shopping after we beat this boss. Picked up some karate. There's all these martial arts moves that you can get throughout the game. Martial arts moves for a speedrun are useless for using, because the way they work is they have a large number of charges, and then they do more and more damage the more that you use them up. So once they get down to like one charge, that's going to be one very last powerful hit that they have. For a speedrun, you would just never attack that many times to take advantage of it. However, you can get the stat bonuses right away, and it turns out that they are all really good agility and HP upgrades for your robot. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and pick up the Arthur armor here. I really shouldn't need this. I think the last time I said that, I had so much extra cash I didn't know what to do with it. We'll go ahead and grab it just in case I make a mistake. It is a nice backup. Like, if I mispurchase the laser guns, having, 25,000 extra gold lets me fix that mistake. Not saying that's going to happen, of course. A few more floors to go. This is the longest dungeon in terms of number of floors. It's smaller than Nasty Dungeon. If you look at walking time, like Nasty Dungeon, the floors are 4 or 5 times as large as this. So it's 10 really big floors versus 12 average size floors. But this is still pretty long compared to most of the other dungeons of the game. It's good that we do have warning and a fast robot so that we don't have to deal with all the fights. But at this point, the monsters are starting to get pretty tough. I just ran away from those guys. No, we're coming up on Warmech, so let's strap in, and hopefully this Warmech fight goes better than the last one. So last time I had to melee Warmech to death. What happened was he used like Nuke Bomb twice in a row, and then he just punched the monster in the face, so I couldn't do any more Stone Gazes. Like, you should be able to win the fight every time, even with melee, because you've got Robot with a decent amount of HP, and then Dad who can heal the party every round. But you're kind of hoping that Warmech doesn't do physical attacks. The missile is not bad, and the Nuke Bomb, as long as he doesn't do it like every single round, you'll eventually out-heal him. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get the Headbutts replaced by Karate. And Dad needs Flare Book and Hecate Boots. Should also heal up the party. Actually, thinking about it, I don't think we took any damage, so that was an unnecessary heal. Well, he's got plenty of charges on that heal staff. Okay, you don't have Aegis anymore. You're going to Stone Gaze, Cat Claw, and for the first round, you're going to Flare. The reason you want to Flare here to start with is Dad's actually faster than Warmech. But now you're going to go and heal staff. There he goes. So once again, big time savings thanks to actually Stone Gaze working. And that's what it should be like almost every single time. It's not a 100% chance of Stone Gaze working, but like 50-50. And it was just like really bad luck last run that neither of the bosses fell to it. Alright, so we can go ahead and sell off all this junk. And we want to buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beam rifles. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have plenty of cash left over, so you get a beam rifle. You get a beam rifle. I'm gonna get that replaced by beam rifle. That replaced by beam rifle, and that replaced by beam rifle. We're also going to not forget to put on Heart Magi. So that's literally the heart of the goddess there. That's what heart stands for. And that's also why the goddess gets resurrected when you use all the Magi together. I think that might be explained in the English text if you read the dialogue really closely, but it's a lot easier to understand in Japanese. Okay, Go ahead and get 3 cottages, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 elixirs. So yeah, I've got 25,000 gold left over. If I hadn't picked up the Arthur armor, I would have still been able to buy 2 cottages and 7 elixirs, which would have been fine. Like 2 and 6, or even 2 and 5, I think you would have no problem with 2 cottages and 5 elixirs for that. Anything more than that, it's just like safety measures. You might want to get 1 extra elixir if you've got somebody blinded, because you need the elixir to fix status ailments at this point. But you can do this with as little as 1 cottage and 4 elixirs, and just have to be really careful with how you manage your flare charges for the last dungeon. I'll go ahead and save just in case. I have screwed up Apollo before. It should be a free fight for the human party. Esper route's a little bit harder because you don't have 2 damage dealers with the beam rifles. Switch you back to beam rifle, and flare book. So the reason why this works is there's a damage threshold at which you'll activate Apollo's second phase AI, which the first 5 turns he's putting up Aegis every time rather than attacking. Only ranged non-elemental weapons will hit him during that. So you've got beam rifles, flare, and the beam skill. In the Esper route, one of the monsters doesn't have a skill you can use, so you lose out 350 damage per round, so all 5 of the rounds. And that means you can't hit the breakpoint for it until like 1 or 2 turns after he's transformed. So you have to sit through at least 1 extra flare as a result in the Esper route. Once he does these 5 turns, then he gets pretty nasty. He's got the Mazmune attack. Hopefully he's not going to hit Dad. And then he's going to start flaring. Alright, so next turn he's going to stop doing the Aegis and do the Mazmune, so we can actually switch off of Robot to Catclaw again. And he hits Dad, so I need to use the extra round anyway, because the flare coming up is going to kill Dad, and you need to have Dad plus 1 other party member alive to win this fight. So you're going to beam, you're going to use the Goddess, and I guess you just flare again. This is a slight waste of time because the more people that are alive at this explosion, the more lines of dialogue there are. Plus you had to do the attacks, but still not bad for the Apollo fight. There he goes. And there goes Dad. So he took 1 too many explosions to the face. That's his 6th time exploding? 5 times? He's definitely taking a lot of damage. And with this, it's definitely going to need the power of the Magi to bring him back to life. There we go. We have summoned the Goddess here. It's like, hey, can you fix Dad? She's like, yep, no problem. And it's like, you know, the world's also about to blow up because Apollo activated the spell's defense system. Can you fix that? She's like, no, can't help you there. We need to go turn that thing off by hand. And that's where this dungeon comes into play. This is a pretty rough dungeon here at the end. Let's go ahead, Uichibo, and you're going to flare every turn. So the reason why this is tough is because all of these fights are unrunnable. And it's a really long dungeon. So you are finally having to really strain your resources in this party. And yeah, Sid in Final Fantasy IV definitely gets compared to Dad quite a lot because of how many times that Dad blows up here. That is a very common thing I hear when running this. I need to see my flare count. I think I've got 1 more flare left after this. Yep. The reason flares are so important, as you can see, they do a lot of damage to every single monster in every single group. I do have the robot with the Uichibo that is doing a smaller amount of damage to a group, but the Goddess is really my primary damage dealer. She's got max stats and really good skills. All of the unique Magi in the game plus flare. This first section here is RNG City. Just how many encounters you're going to get and what the turn order is going to be like. But then you have 2 RNG bosses in a row. you got Tianlong and Fenrir, both of which can have 1 to 4 copies show up. We want 1 copy. You get a guaranteed meat drop from Tianlong and Fenrir. Tianlong we're going to eat with the monster. Both of them are really hard the more copies that you get. In fact, 4 is pretty much impossible for both. 3 Fenrirs is also pretty much impossible. You'd have to have really super good luck to survive that. Can I read Hiragana and Katakana? Yes. So I can read Japanese well enough to keep up with the game like this. There are no kanji in this, so it's not even like really difficult constructions that you need to deal with. Okay, so monster has not been damaged, which means I can go ahead and elixir there instead of tinting. Well, I mean, we got another room to go through, so maybe I will have to elixir or tint again after this. I've got enough that it's okay if I waste one. And there we go, boss time. So once again, hoping for 1 Tianlong here. 2 Tianlongs, that's actually not bad. Beam, beam, beam. We got Cat Claw and Flare. Alright, so 1 of them down. Okay, did not kill monster, so we should be good. And there we go, Tianlong falls. It's a guaranteed meat drop, and now we evolve Watcher into Madam Butterfly there. Madam Butterfly, one of the best monsters in the game. Switch you to Absorb, back to Yuichibo. And apologies if I'm swapping back and forth between the Japanese and English terms for things. Like it's Samurai Bow in English, but Yoichibo here in Japanese. Some of which you might recognize from various different ways that you might have heard games translated in the past. Like Yoichibo, I think, is in Final Fantasy IV for the English translation for the later versions versus Samurai Bow in the original. Sleipnirs, and that's a lot of them. Hopefully we can get this pretty quickly. Sleipnir, one of maybe like a half-dozen monsters that Flare is not guaranteed to kill. We actually got a really good roll on them, so not too bad there. We also do a little bit less damage now, although Madam Butterfly is really good for the final boss. She's got Absorb and Heal, which are really great for like one-on-one battles. She does not have a multi-target attack, and so like these groups of monsters are a little bit harder for her to take on. Absorb means that she has her HP pretty much full all the time, but she's not killing them as fast as Beam would. That was almost a really good run. Okay, 1 more flare left after this. Let's go ahead and I guess use the cottage. Like, it's not really a waste because I do have extras. Just preferable to have the cottage right before Fenrir instead of a little bit before, a couple battles before, just in case you take more damage here, especially on the monsters. Like humans, it doesn't matter if they are at 1 HP or at max HP. 1 hit's gonna kill them. We are almost up to Fenrir. This was a really slow trip. Hopefully we get like a first try Fenrir. I think it was a couple re-rolls in the one we're comparing against. That's the only reason we're even close time-wise. Because that was probably like 5 or 6 more encounters than normal. 2 2 Fenrir's. We'll go ahead and try this. Cat Claw Flare. And this time we don't need the monster to survive, so as long as anybody can pull us out of this fight, we're good. There we go. And with that, we are on to the last floor of the game. We just need to get across this place and then go fight the final boss. Hopefully a first try final boss. Get a beam. Oops. Want to do the samurai bow. Oh, and last flare. So hopefully this doesn't miss any of them. Okay, we got them all. That was one of the ones where, especially the D-turtle on the left, it's kind of inconsistent about whether flare is going to kill him or not. I think intercept is also one that every once in a while survives. Okay, beam, absorb, samurai bow, and flare. I mean, this is nice getting extra hit points for our humans, but I'd rather get through the dungeon as quickly as possible. Ooh, this is a good walk. We got all the way to Arsenal? Nope. And your attacks do not get retargeted, so I do have to pick the correct monster that I'm guessing is going to survive the fights. Otherwise, you would go into a second round, potentially have to flare again. There we go. We are into final boss battle. Let's save up. Use our cottage one last time. Step manipulation is actually different categories, so you can run this game with or without step manipulation for the purposes of competition. US runners just do it without step manipulation. Japanese has both communities fairly active. Okay, the first phase here, Arsenal is going to do a lot of damage. I think that's going to kill one of the girls. Yep. And basically, as you break his cannons off, he does less and less. Unfortunately, he got like really bad turn order for us, and so I think both of the humans are going to die. Yep, there they go. Well, that means no distractions, as well as probably more damage that we're going to be taking on Madam Butterfly and Robot here before the start. Okay, switch you back to Absorb. At this point, it's just RNG the game. So we are trying not to be killed by Big Smasher, which is the phase after this. This is Small Smasher, usually not a big deal. But Big Smasher randomly between 99 and 639 damage to the entire party. And here it goes. Come on, small ones. 333, 189. So 333 is actually better to be on Madam Butterfly since she is the one with Absorb. As long as he doesn't double turn here. Okay, she's back at the full. We don't want to see a 639 on Robot. Okay, Robot's going to live. But we definitely need Madam Butterfly to go first and not miss this Absorb. Or we can have the Robot go first, so there goes Arsenal. This will be a pretty good run. That was actually really lucky that we had more damage than normal going into the fight, plus the Robot going so early. The Robot actually has a bug, where once he gets to a very high level of agility, he starts going at the end of the round instead of the beginning. That's because it's actually overflowing the agility calculation for initiative. With that, we have saved the entire universe, and as a reward, we get absolutely nothing. The guy just says, go away and stop bothering her. But we get our own reward, which is being reunited here with Dad. And there we go. That's the end of character control. I can't make the game move any faster here. But the Japanese timing is all the way until the end credits are shown on the screen, so we will go wait for that. But you can pretty much guess how much it's going to be time-wise. Also, as a comparison, just to give an indication of what the difference is for game speed, 142.20 is my world record on the US version. That's up to the start of the conversation there with Dad. That was like a mid 139 for that same spot. So that's like at least 3, if not 4 minutes faster, because certainly there are things in this run that could have gone faster overall. Up through maybe Watcher, probably like another minute and a half could be faster done. After Watcher, though, what went wrong? Minion was, I think, second try for the Stone Gaze, and then Tianlong and Finn were both really slow just because we got a lot of encounters. But at least all the bosses were first try. And I'll be interested to see where this kind of falls on the Japanese leaderboards. I don't remember what their no encounter manipulation times look like, just in terms of the overall rankings, but that was definitely a run I think is useful for comparing between the route that I use versus their routes. Min was first try Stone Gaze. For some reason I thought one of Minion or Warmack was second try. And by second try, I mean the second round of the fight. I didn't have to reset, but it's like 50-50 each round whether it's going to be applied. There we go with this finale, talking to all the characters, getting some more of the good music in this game. Final Fantasy Legend 2 or SaGa 2's got my favorite song of the SaGa series, which is Burning Blood. That's the theme you heard back at the final dungeon, as well as at Venus's Wedding. But I think Final Fantasy Legend 3 actually has a better overall soundtrack. It's just got like so many good tunes in it. But that is nice seeing that sub 139 arsenal for the Japanese route, or the Japanese version of the game. This is the exact same route I do on the English version, so it's a little bit different than if you watch like the runners on Nico for the routes that they use. But it's still pretty competitive. And here we go, one last scene where dad, mom, and daughter all go out the window together. And with that, that is going to conclude SaGa 2 here tonight. And there we go. So,